get stalled or stuck in a spot and not know exactly, okay, now what do I do? So we're going to try to give that information. If he's allowed to come into your space, obviously, then that's where things, start to change, because if the closer they get to us, the more apt we are to move our feet. And by the nature of a horse, if they can displace you in any way, they recognize you're movable and you will become a target for them to, and that doesn't make them bad, that's just because they're horses. So when we're having a conversation with a horse, or if a horse walks up to the person, when the horse is maybe 15 or 20 feet from you, you'll step into the horse and that'll cause him to stop. You pause and then you go in and spend time petting, scratching, whatever you want to do. But it's not a good policy to have them come in for attention unless you've invited them in. And that is absolutely fine to have them in there with you if you want them to be there. Most misused pieces of equipment that there is, and it becomes very, very dangerous in some cases, because it's very misleading for the horse. You may have run across or have a horse or something that as soon as they go in the round pen, because they have been misunderstood in the round pen, they just start running, and that's not progress at all. If I have my druthers, I would much rather work in a square pen. Okay, and the reason for that is the square pen has 4 corners. That's a place for a horse to hang up in. And our whole point of working with horses is to get them to think. A lot of time this round pen business takes them out of their mind. All they're doing is traveling, and they can't really make sense of what's there. So they're kind of get into their flight mode. And unfortunately, a lot of times people feel like that's the lesson. We want to wear this guy down a little bit so that he can listen to us. Have to do by studying the muscle decisions of your horse. When the opportunity is set up, you'll watch the muscles engage before the feet actually move. And this is where our timing evolves from. Because the closer we can relate to the horse's decision, in other words, in the early parts of a lesson, that we can let the horse realize that they're on the right track, the quicker they can put the pieces together. I think a lot of horses have a struggle because they are completely they don't have any connection with what we want, because they don't know, so they'll grasp at straws to do everything they think they can, and obviously the flight instinct will step into that. But energy is your most important ingredient. No energy, no teaching. Too much energy, no teaching. So we want to be able to find that pathway of understanding. Now I want you to watch the way that Trudy moves. And if your gait is anything other than what your gait would be if you were out shopping or walking, going for a walk, you want to correct that. So you don't want to find your gait to be animated and or robotic, but walk the way you walk. There's a decision, and then take a step back. Every time the horse makes a decision, you stop and take a half a step or 1 step backwards. Okay, so what we're allowing the horse to try to understand is that all we're asking for you is to move the back feet. Okay, now when this lesson becomes clarified, we are going to, then you can move up into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But in any lesson, it's beneficial that you'll end up coming back to this lesson, because this is where the horse will have first, and you can tell by his yawning, his licking of the lips, the blinking of the eyes, that he's trying to release his stress levels. Okay, now, when the horse starts moving away, this is where we can add a little bit of energy, because the way that I look at it, if the horse chooses to move away, then his energy is going somewhere else. I want him to understand that I'm in charge of his energy. So if he's free to move out and everything. Okay, now what Trudy just did was occupy the space that he stood in. And the temptation that we all have is to go in and move the horse and follow the horse. It's counterproductive. You know, there's a time when you can move to follow the horse and kind of liberty driving. But in the early stages of your communication, you're trying to set up a base of understanding, and fundamentally it's the foundation that you're building, so the horse can get to understand that all you're asking for is one thing. And you'll go at the same place each time. And when that place is really understood and he's easy to take into the gait that you're asking for, then you go to the opposite side of the pen and start asking from there before you start changing locations. Okay, now when you see your horse, and they're all going to be different, but when you see your horse hanging his head to the outside a lot, obviously that's where his mind is. So this is where you'll start this process of trying to move in towards the hind quarter and draw at least his head off of the rail, and eventually his feet. Let's see what he does. Going to stick by mom.
Weakness in that hind.
If I have a horse that we're now working on various things, I keep the lesson plan in 3 to 5 minutes segments. So if I'm working 3 to 5 minutes, I have a pause. The pause will last a minute or more if necessary, if I feel like doing it. And then you can do that process all day long. And it has a couple of benefits. One, it starts to teach a work ethic. And every time that you re-engage your lesson, you do it exactly the same way each time. When he takes a visual on you with his body, I would just stand here for a few moments. Don't go right back into moving his feet. Let him start to realize that if he keeps his focus on you, then he's going to realize that he can get out of this work, for one. We're going to kind of play on that his decision to stop a moment ago, and see if he thinks about doing it again. And one of the things I think we can make a big mistake is micromanaging our horses when we're trying to teach them, because we have to let them kind of discover what's going on in the environment. And if it's too much information flowing all the time, then we actually end up creating some issues that we weren't intending to. Okay. Good boy. start your circle. He's not looking at me, but we're going to walk anyway. Start your circle at the distance that you were from him. And boy, take a step back when he displaces himself. Wait for a moment. Start that journey the other way. So as to cross over. It doesn't matter what the front feet are doing because you're looking at the back feet. At least I am. There you go. Now, as I approach him, watch this flank area, and you'll find out when he lightens that foot, in this case his left foot, that's where I will pause and see if he'll finish that decision on his own. Does anybody in their working with their horses ever worry about doing the wrong thing? That can be a big issue for anybody, everybody, because if we worry about doing the wrong thing, we'll never be able to discover the right thing. The wrong thing is your friend, and you want to be able to embrace every error that you make. The horse won't suffer for it. Oh boy. So as we get back to this position repeatedly, this is the foundation. This is where your horse is going to start to recognize that you're only asking for one thing. Did you see the foot lighten up before it lightened? Okay, that's your observation. Starting to find this a little bit more often, and this is really all the lesson is intended to be. He can find his way back to a place that feels like he can do something. Doesn't have to do anything. There's the light foot. Let's see if we can get a crossover. So when a horse finds a place to occupy, in other words, when they do that, they're not really engaged with you, that they have found a place. Okay, now let's assume this is the place. So I'm going to walk in here, and if he didn't know what I was doing, I would let that rope take up that space. But it does not change the way that you approach that space. And your temptation
Let's scoot down and get her
is to turn and typically anyway, to turn and follow the horse. You don't want to do that. Just hold this place here. This is what another horse would do. We're going to walk in here and take that place away, but you're just going to walk over there the way you walk. And then in a lesson that you might be doing with your horse, at some point, there is no time limit on this. because you're developing foundation on your horse. So, you know, that's one of the things that we all ask initially when they're being introduced to something. How long does this usually take? It's always on somebody's mind. And so time has no reference to this. Hopefully, if this is done right and you're doing it with therapy, I mean, it's a way for you to be relaxed at what you're doing. Now, how many of you, when you're working with your horses, do something where you're carrying a lariat?
I haven't done that.
So most of you would be carrying, would a whip be the most common thing that you'd carry? No? Yes for some, no for others. Lead ropes?
Lead rope.
Okay. So we'll use a lead rope on this, and then I'll use a whip so you get an understanding of the change of the language. The lead rope really is no different than the lariat, except it doesn't have a memory to it like the lariat does. So it doesn't, until you get used to it, it's like kind of coiling up a fishing line or something. But it works exactly the same way. Okay, now I'm just going to take advantage of this and see where he goes with this. I want to see if I can, so like Trudy was doing, see if I can displace the hind quarter whenever he stops. Okay, now I'm going to pass behind him in a straight line and see if I can draw him off of the fence. When you are able to draw him off of the fence, it's a realization that he is absolutely hooked up to you. If he's not, he's not. Okay, now we're going to take this away. I'm going to start to approach towards his hind quarter, just like Trudy did. See if we can get that to engage where he makes a pivot. Okay, this is the point where you start raising the energy a little bit. So if you have this kind of a reaction from the horse, you're just going to take charge of that energy. I follow a single kiss for a walk, double for a trot, triple for a canter. Now your body language is part of that. So your core is what's going to, is where your language comes from. So if I want him to trot, I work on what I call a sequential teaching. So when I'm asking for energy, I want this to be the command to step up with a kiss or double kiss. And if I ask for this and it doesn't work, I have basically a 2 to 3 second window to support that request. And that follows into a, then if nothing happens then, I'll be twirling the rope. Nothing happens then, I'll advance on the horse. So we ask for the trot. Now, when you're working with your horse on transitions, your temptation is to try to keep the horse going. It's not productive. You want to build on the transition to the trot, and as the transition becomes better, then the maintenance to maintain it becomes better. But you'll find yourself when he loses a trot, you want to rush in there and get him trotting. So all the time that you're moving in the middle, but you don't try to get out there and keep him moving. So much of the time, I think we find ourselves trying to do something, trying to do the job for the horse. Whoa. Now watch, as you watch him in the arena, in this area, he starts coming to the inside more at the same place each time. So right here, I'm gonna step into him, push him out a little bit, but not use any hand signals or waving my rope or anything like that. I just want the approach to have an effect on him. And more. So I'm going to start working and see if I can start to pull him off of the rail. So I'm going to walk a straight line back here and see, and there he comes off the rail slightly. His head came in slightly. Walk a straight line towards the hind quarter. Now that's where the hind quarter was, not where it is. We'll get down to a place where you can possibly see the decisions that I'm looking for.
Focus
so
on the
basically, as
shoulder.
the core is facing the direction that you're looking. And when I first starting with the horse, I'm not consumed at all with where the horse goes. So when you're first asking for energy, you let the horse choose where he wants to go. If you get stuck on the idea, I didn't want you to go that way, now you're going to muddy the water a little bit too much, because what you're establishing here is that you have energy when you ask for it, and that's all you're asking for. And I'm walking straight in. See what kind of an effect it will have on the horse. And he's off the rail a little bit there. Attaboy. If you do nothing, chances are he will either come into you or he'll do nothing. I'm just going to kind of demonstrate what I've seen. Whether you do this or not, I don't know. But a lot of times when we're using a whip, it's like this. Okay? You find yourself saying, come on, and you'll be leaning out and trying to get the horse to go. So you've changed your whole balance, your whole structure by doing that. You're almost threatening the horse. So I'm ahead of him. Yeah, I told you he could fly.
Easy. He has an association with the whip. He has an association with that whip.
So the thing to set him off, which is this whip, we want this thing to settle him down. eventually he's going to have to start to ask a question, what do you want? And we wait to see that, how that happens. So I don't want to advance on him. I just want to move around. Actually, your body that's going to be asking for the energy, not the whip. You don't want to get the idea that the whip is the tool to get energy. It's an aid to your body language. Get that in a minute. Anytime you're using a whip and or twirling a rope, that rhythm has to be in the same cadence as your footfall, your stride. So you don't want to, and you'll see that when people are using a twirling rope, they'll twirl it pretty fast a lot of times, but it doesn't help the horse. In fact, the faster you move it, the more they'll eventually start to ignore it. But if your motion of your rope is in rhythm with your step, the horse becomes less interested in it in terms of worrying about it. With the whip, the windshield wiping is, in my opinion, a way to approach it. If you're doing this,
I just sort of drag it around me just so that there's that boundary around me.
well, you can do that if you want to. But realize that you're teaching the language of your body. You should be able to get the same response without the whip as you do with it. It's an aid. It's not a tool. See, and you'll see that with a lot of times when people start using something like a whip or a crop. If you're using a crop to get energy in your riding, to have a horse step up, it has to be in concert with the contact of your leg. You don't want to use this to get the horse to go. It has to be in concert with your body language, and then it becomes understood. Attaboy. So when he takes a choice to turn in with this thing going on, then I want to turn away from him. Attaboy. I will test him a little bit and see if I can go with him doing this and what kind of decision he makes. So this portion of it is just the whip. There's no body language included in this, other than the fact that I'm walking with him. We wanted to get him to see if he can feel comfortable with this going with him, and if he will eventually stop and ask a question. So when you're working like with a rope or a lariat, or with a whip for that matter, if your hands are always at your waist, you have an origin of the lesson. If you find yourself doing this and the horse is going and you stay like that, we call that a scarecrow. And there's nothing more you can do when you're already in that position. So the horse needs to see a retreat of your information the moment that you see a response to the information. So now you can start over again anytime you need to. Boy. Now, if I'm not paying attention and this horse comes into my space, I would never shoo him out or reprimand him in any way because it's my fault that he's there. Now, if you're consistent with stopping a horse 15, 20 feet away from you every time they approach you, and then after they stop, you walk in. And when I walk in, I'll stare at their feet as I walk in next to him, and I'll let him explore me, but I won't touch him. When he's explored me, then I'll leave and see if he wants to follow me. So the departure that you use, and this is if you're standing by a horse like this, you're standing the way another horse typically stands when they stand together, usually one facing one the other. So your departure is straight away, not out there. Okay, now we'll see if he'll come along. Well, what if he doesn't come along? What would you do? Anybody? You go right back into the lesson you were doing. You can play with your departure a little bit. Say if I walked past him and gave a request for him to come and he didn't come, then I would turn around and I'd come in and I'd do it on the other side, or I'd come back and do it on this side, and just give a single kiss to see if I can engage his thought. But if he is just not connected with you, you simply go back to the routine. I'd like you to move out. I'd like this energy to be such and such. And you want to be able to fluctuate the energy without disturbing the horse. These are confidence lessons. And like, is it Jackie that has, yeah. When your horse has an issue with ropes. hope that the horse doesn't feel threatened. Now when we hit this part of it, if the horse wouldn't come, you'd start a circle around him. And what you're going to see here is what a difference looks like. He'll get to the point that he'll get comfortable with what's going on and start to just come along with this. When I turn around and walk back doing this, it'll change everything. Now, if the horse stalls, don't pull harder to try to get him going. Just start a circle around him. Good boy. Now that changes everything when I turn around. So when you start a lesson like this, the first place that the horse starts to feel some confidence in what you're doing is what you'll always go back to throughout a lesson. I'll guarantee your arm will wear out before the horse does.
Ned, if you start doing that with a horse and they start going backwards, you just go with them?
You go with them and start a circle around them. A circle will always displace a horse without any strength. But if you get into a tugging match with them, then they'll start to identify this lesson with something that's restraining him. So he's getting a little closer.
Mm-hmm. Good boy.
Just an observance for you when you're working with your horse. When you see them stop in the middle of something, if their front feet are splayed, they're not in balance. So when a horse actually takes a square position in the front station, if you see him stopping like this, you want to keep doing something and the same thing you're doing until they all of a sudden adjust themselves, excuse me, and kind of square up those front feet. You're either stressed or you didn't get any sleep last night. Okay, now let's start the journey again. We want him to find the answer. It could be a temptation sometimes to try to stop a horse when they do that. You just let them go until they decide they can stop. So you're always trying to set up a decision-making process so they find the answer in the moment rather than us trying to show the answer to them.
Look at those yawns.
So interesting.
Yeah, boy, good for you. So by changing hands, it changes the horse. Boy. Boy. This lesson obviously is a lesson that should be taught to all horses being started, and he's doing great with it. But and all you're doing is taking the slack up on it. You're not trying to pull his head around. Every time he gives you slack, you just take the slack in. We've done this on horses that have been, 15, 18 years old, and they lose their minds over it. Gently take the slack up. Don't try to pull his head around. So this is a puzzle. You just want the horse to find the answer to the puzzle and realize all he has to do is just move his feet. Good boy. Now this lesson will go on for quite a while. We won't take the lesson, I would spend, depending on the horse, I would spend maybe up to an hour doing this if necessary until their first instinct is to unwind themselves. Where you don't want to help your horse. Temptation is always there to put a little pressure on him and make him come, but you want him to find the answer. There's part of it. He gave slack. boy. A lot of thinking. If I go to sleep, maybe this will just go away.
Good boy.
So this must be a silly question, but what specifically is that teaching the horse? Why would you do that?
First part of it is that he's learning how to think through an emotion or think through a position. Secondly, it's a confidence lesson.
I see.
Because the more he can, a lot of times if you have horses that aren't familiar with those things around their legs,
Yeah.
they go to striking and kicking and so forth. But the whole point of the lesson is to have the horse be able to find the answer to the puzzle.
Okay.
And you just work with it and work with it until that horse, when that thing goes over his head, he knows it, or goes over his hindquarters rather, he knows that he can handle this because all he has to do is just move his feet.
Ned,
Yes.
if he lifted his leg and got it in between the rope,
Uh-huh.
would you just,
The question is, if he lifted his leg and got it tangled in the rope, I think you're asking, what would I do?
yes,
Well, I would first see if I could work with that position unless he was panicked. If he was panicked, then I would just drop the rope and let him walk out of it. These lessons, a lesson like this can save your life someday easily. Now I'm holding the rope and he's the one that applied the pressure. There he goes. Now he found his way. Good boy. The focus on getting inside turns, outside turns, dropping the head to get a decision, stepping in to get a decision. All of that is good stuff to do, but I don't do it until I have a presence of the horse. Because if I start to do all those things, I'm doing a lot of things then, trying to get one thing to happen, and he can't discern it the same way as if I can have him just understand how simple our relationship can be. And they're all different. I mean, whatever the need. You always want to address your horse in teaching from where they are, not physically standing, but where they are mentally. You don't want to start them with a goal of something that they are not able to give you. Another caution, when you're using hand signals, this is where you start from, and this is how slowly you ask it. Your instinct would be to go like this to get the horse to do something. And it's more movement that's necessary, and some horses have to figure out some way to discern that. They don't know what all that motion means. So So you want to have in your relationship different methods of asking to back up. And when you're doing this lesson, don't take this particular, any lesson for that matter, don't take your eyes off the feet. You want to watch the feet that you're speaking to. Attaboy. Now we see, I'm going to see if I can get a half a step on that right rear. There you go. Attaboy. Just like on trailer loading, the first thing that I do teaching a horse trailer loading is teaching them to back up, not to go forward. Because when you're doing a trailer loading lesson on a horse, your ability to be stationary represents your authority. If you're moving all over the place when you're trying to load a horse, because you're moving, there's too much distraction for the horse. But as you're stationary, you can control the horse from a distance when you have different communications, whether it's wiggling the rope, this kind of a thing, to back the horse up. And how many of you pony horses? Okay. When you're ponying a horse, the horse that you're on, you should be able to perform all the exercises, lead line exercises that you did on the ground from the saddle before you start dragging that horse around, because the horse that you're ponying with has got to be a pony horse. If he doesn't have all that communications available to him between the two of you, you can get a heck of a wreck in trying to pony a horse. So you should be able to sit in the saddle, have him circle you, have him stop, change directions, back up, all that stuff from the saddle. Attaboy. Attaboy. Now in your teaching process, just like when I very first started this thing by taking the space away from him and tossing that rope, you're setting an example of what your language means. You're not punishing the horse. When you're asking a horse to back up on a command like this, if he's not backing up, it's increasing, and then something happens that causes a decision. And when you get to, I call that an exclamation mark or a clarity. But when you get to that spot it should be early in the lesson, so you don't want to find yourself trying to say, please back up. He's got to understand that is a command that he needs to understand. So once you've got some understanding going with him, then we can take and stand here. Ask him to back up. So when you start asking, you're only asking for one step. If he takes more than that, that's his business, but all you're asking for is one. So wherever you are with the horse, you should be able to get a backup that way. He comes off of this, but he has to learn that. You won't teach that in the cart. You have to first teach what it is for him to find his way off of that contact. You can see on this guy, there's a lot of push, but the contact change. So he has to find his way off of that decision to step off of it. And so that's how you
So we need to build the lesson.
correct the lesson, because you can't ask him to do something he doesn't understand. So it's how to, and then again, this is almost like another puzzle. You're asking him to discover the answer. You're just like when you're walking with him with the lead rope and he starts pushing and you have contact on him, you walk until he says, well, I don't want that. And so he steps off of it. So it becomes his decision to relieve himself, and you build on that. And that's an important lesson.
Thank you.
On that note, do you want to?
Yeah, we're ready for whichever.